This is Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terry Levine. Listen every week as Terry tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terry on Twitter at MentorTerry and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terry Levine. And now here's Terry.
Hi, welcome. It's Terry Levine, Heartrepreneur Radio, Heartrepreneur TV. Thank you once again for tuning in. And in this moment, just take a second and get really present and really clear what your intention is. What is it that you want to learn that will help you in business and in life? And in this short episode, I am certain that you are going to get tremendous value because I have someone with me today whose brain I sort of want to pick, as I'm very, very interested in this topic, and I think you will be as well. So my guest today that I'll bring on in just a moment, his name is Reynolds, and he is a partner and chief solutionist architect. By the way, I love that name, at ZibTech. And what ZibTech does is they're a software development firm, and they help businesses of all sizes here in the United States to solve their core problems with software. And by the way, that's why I'm excited about this topic, because in my company, it seems like we are rapidly having more and more questions about software with the way things are changing. So what ZibTech does is they empower entrepreneurs, growth companies, enterprises, visionary firms to achieve greater profitability. We all want that, yes. Greater efficiency, we all want that, yes. Valuation and ultimate success by building the right tools through custom software. So Ian, welcome to Heartrepreneur Radio and Television.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
I'm excited to have you. So, just to start off, I hear questions every day from my own clients, like, what should I be doing on my website? Should I have a membership site? Do I need to blog? What's the best community software? Should I be using Hootsuite, or should I be, posting on Facebook every day? And it just seems like people are inundated with software questions. So in today's show, I'd like to make it easy and effortless and somewhat simple. Is there a way to make this whole world of software simple? That's my first question.
Yeah, I think the increasing availability of new and ever sort of increasing and powerful tools on the market from sort of the software perspective is going to continue to disrupt things. It's going to continue to change the landscape. And you sort of mentioned websites. I mean, websites are, someone said, several years ago that websites are the new real estate, and that's still very much the case, right? You have to present yourself online in a digital medium in a way that's very, very clear, very concise, very, very, very sort of accurately representing your brand, your business. And it's going to be increasingly important as the world becomes much more global, as you sort of have these trading partners who are no longer in the United States, or maybe in a close proximity from a country standpoint, right? The new trade act was recently signed between Mexico and Canada, and so that's going to further increase our trade ties, right? And then, of course, the U.S. is an ever burgeoning market. So
someone has a website. This is what I find. I don't know if this is true for you, but I find lots of people's websites are very stagnant. I can go today, I can go 6 months from now. It looks exactly the same. There's no activity, nothing's happening. Is that the correct way of doing business on a website?
No. So Google wants to see consistent improvement. And in fact, because so many people are getting very, very active with their mobile devices, Google wants to see things that are optimized for mobile. So speed, as well as consistent updates, are really kind of what Google's looking for. And having that active web presence, having an updated both visual and technical sort of performance on your website is really going to materially impact your ability to sort of stand out from the crowd.
So can that be done through blogging? Like if you blog regularly, or does it have to be done by more than that?
It's going to be more than that. There are very technical aspects of a website now that really kind of didn't exist several years ago. You're able to, this is true with modern applications as well, you're able to deliver content via what is called API, right? So application programming interface. And websites now can be built in such a way where they're called headless. So any type of device that I'm delivering my content to is just going to interpret that API information in the best way that's for that device, right? So my screen size here may be a certain screen size, but you may have, say, an iPhone or one of these types of devices. And if I'm delivering the content via API, then I'm allowing the device to interpret that data in the way that's best for the device. And so this applies not only to sort of websites, right, where you can have what's called a progressive web app that'll do this sort of headless information delivery, but also my software, right, where I can have my software be in a sort of headless structure where it will deliver to my client or my end user in a way that best fits their form factor.
You know, it's interesting. I love that we're talking about this because just today I had a client who has a new webinar and asked me to watch the webinar. So I picked up this device and the webinar was a disaster. And then I was curious. I went to my computer. It was perfect. And I said, well, it's not optimized for my mobile device. I don't know about other people's, but it needs to be optimized across devices. And of course, she came back to me and said, I have no idea how to do that. So, you know, we're running into, in my experience, mentoring lots of businesses, more and more like, how do we manage all of this? There seems to be so many pieces of the puzzle. Like if you're an entrepreneur, you only have a 4-person corporation. How do you manage all of these things? And how do you know, because there's so many changes and algorithms, how do you keep up with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so one of the things we advise our clients to do is really not try to step out and expand your competency necessarily, right? Identify an expert and then, you know, retain some of that expert's time to fill in the gaps, ask questions, and then maybe solve for those technical problems for you so that you can remain focused on your core business. I mean, we as a business, we're predominantly software focused. We're not necessarily marketers by trade. So we do that same sort of structure with marketing firms that come and assist us, right? We want to stay focused on what we do best, which is building software. And so in the same manner, we sort of advise our clients to, hey, go find an expert, go find somebody who has particular domain knowledge of the thing that you're trying to solve, and then retain them.
That's perfect. Yeah, it's interesting because people come to me and they ask software technical questions and, you know, they want to create whatever it is, virtual universities, membership sites, and all customized software solutions. And I'm like, okay, I'm a marketing and business consultant. I need to steer you somewhere else. By the way, what is the website so that people can find you, Ian?
Visit www.zibtech.com and just submit a contact form. Say, hey, I saw you in the Dr. Terry Levine show, and we'll happy to reach out.
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect. So what else? This is a big question. What's going on these days with SEO, search engine optimization, right? I have people ask me all the time, is this still needed? Is this still necessary? Does this still exist? I know a lot of people who I've mentored have paid for this like 5-10 years ago. And now it seems people aren't paying for it. Should they be?
Yeah, this is a great question. So there were something like 220 million websites created last year, just last year.
Last year,
right. And so the internet is no longer, if you build it, they will come. It's if you build it and market it aggressively, they'll come if you're also targeted to their needs. So SEO is going to continue to play a really, really major importance. If you look at the Fortune 500, the vast majority of Fortune 500, let's just talk about software companies, Fortune 500 software companies. If you look at the vast majority of their traffic, it's coming not from paid advertising, not from traditional marketing, but it's actually coming from search engine optimization and search engine marketing, right? Showing up for the specific problem or specific query that an individual is looking for. So there's a technical aspect to that. Having your site be a certain speed, having your site, basically have the sort of headless structure like I talked about is going to be increasingly important as people move to, a variety of devices. But then also having fresh, relevant content that speaks to your audience and solves a particular problem that the person is searching for.
Okay. And is it I don't know, is this part of it that your like domain name should be long tail and should have what people are looking for? How does that work? I know we talked about long tail for several years and I'm not seeing much about it anymore. So that's still hold true?
Got it. So the domain name itself is less relevant than it used to be.
Okay.
What is highly relevant is your title and then really the content in the article. So if I'm searching for, how much does the average fire truck weigh, and I'm getting results that say, like there are no blue fire trucks, that those are incongruent sort of answers, right? So I'm looking for a specific response to my search query that answers a specific question. And so Google's constantly weighing how long people are staying on pages, et cetera. So by answering the question that the person is searching for, you're going to get the most careful response. You're going to get the most traffic because you're going to show up number one for that result. That's effectively the structure. So there's an on-page technical element, and then there's also a sort of traditional marketing, answering the question, and then having a very sort of long form and appropriate answer for that question.
Got it. Can you give us an example maybe at ZipTech of a client that you've helped, and just so we can have an idea of what ZipTech does?
Sure. So we had we've been doing a lot of, let's say, healthcare and finance. And really, while we're generalists, we do in particular focus on healthcare and finance. And we had a client who has their MD, PhD, and they're doing post-op studies of folks who've had knee surgery. And these knee surgeries, they were trying to determine, is this treatment effective for that patient, as they were kind of conducting multiple treatments. Is, in some cases, they would put in physical hardware, so they're putting in an implant into the knee, replacing the knee joint. And they were trying to make a determination as to how they could improve their ability to collect the survey data. And it was a very manual process. They had literally people with clipboards and then writing on a paper, and then they were entering this information on an Excel spreadsheet. And so we built a tool that allows for this data collection to occur automatically. And they have a sort of online piece of software. It sends the surveys. It allows for that post-op data collection systematically, right? They have to follow up only so many times a month. And they need to make sure that that all that data is statistically random in an appropriate way, so that they're not getting sort of false positives. So we built a software suite that is web and mobile that allows them to collect this survey data. The participants can then have sort of the survey questionnaire app on their phone, and then also go to this online portal, receive emails automatically, and that's pretty significantly reduced the burden of sort of the manual calls, the manual follow-up, and it's improved engagement, right? Because people are attached to their mobile device. People are, you can't go anywhere without your phone. And so that's an example of something that we've built where someone's had a particular problem, in this case in the healthcare arena, and we've solved that for them.
That's really interesting. I have several clients that, maybe more than several, maybe like 50 or 60, that have asked me, should I have an app? And in many cases, I find this interesting. I'm like, what would be on the app? And they're like, well, what's on my website. I'm like, well, I wouldn't want an app that's what's on your website. So if someone's thinking about an app, give us some pointers on why you would want to have an app and what typically would be involved, if you might.
Sure. So if the questions you really should be answering is it going to provide an additional layer of value to my client or to my end consumer where they have the application? Is it convenience? Is it speed? Is it I'm able to provide them additional information? Or am I going to be able to communicate with my end consumer, my end business user a little bit more easily? So those are, do the sort of principal evaluation thereof. But if I'm going to build a mobile application, there are a couple components that sort of tie back to the website, right? So you can actually structure your website to be an app. So if you go to zibtech.com, our website is actually an app. It's not a traditional website. It's actually is an app. You can actually download it on your phone. It's called a progressive web application. And as it's structured, it's also that headless sort of structure we talked about, and allows me to download the site and then have it available on my phone. Right? That would be like a first step as opposed to creating a mobile app. Because if I create a mobile application, I have to write it for iOS and Android, right? And the costs of that can be rather significant if you don't have sort of a prior structure in place. So the first recommendation would be probably to take your website, turn your website into that progressive web application, and then look at engagement. Are people downloading it? If they're asking for more features, if they're interacting heavily with that sort of downloaded progressive web app, then maybe you should look towards a sort of native mobile application experience. And that can be done both via sort of a hybrid technology like Flutter or React or Xamarin, or sort of natively, so you write it in Swift or Java.
That's exciting. Tell people the website again, because I don't think I've seen a website like this.
Yeah, so visit www.zibtech.com.
That's awesome. I'm excited about that. So another question that I have is people always ask me, and again, I'm marketing and business mentor, but they always ask me about websites. And they say, well, what should be on the home page? Are there any like rules or regulations or right things, wrong things that we can be noticing on a home page of a website?
Great question. Your home site, your home page for your site is really the most important page on your entire website, right? It is the first impression that your users get of you and your business. And so if you need to be ADA compliant, which is Americans with Disabilities Act compliant, it's really important that you are ADA compliant. That's the first thing that can get you in trouble. The second thing that can get you in trouble is really kind of security. Increasingly, there's a lot of vulnerabilities that are coming out of the woodwork, and so making sure that you have HTTPS on your site, or HTTPS 2, and all of your pages are under that framework. HTTPS is sort of like there's a secret code that only your computer has and only my computer has, and that makes sure that sort of nobody is snooping between the communication that my website and your computer are sharing. So security vulnerabilities, and then also sort of having that ADA compliance where it's appropriate. Those are the two most, I'd say, kind of vital things. Now, the second thing is really making sure that it's fast. So Google is increasingly punishing websites that are very, very slow, right? So they want to see the sort of rule of thumb they've said is that if it's under 10 milliseconds in terms of something loading, that's the point at which it feels near instantaneous for the user. And that's sort of what they want to encourage.
That's interesting. I have an older site, and on the site we had a membership area with, 20 or 30 very long television shows. So it would take a very long time to load. And the site used to be organically pretty much at the top of Google. And I kept seeing the site drop and drop and drop. And then I figured out it's because these videos slow down the site. It took forever for the site to load. So we found another way of doing it. And all of a sudden, I saw it go back up. I had no idea why. You just taught me why. So thank you. I was guessing as to why. It was totally
right. Right. Yeah. Go back to that, there's 220 million websites created last year, right? So Google has to weigh these things. They want to sort of say, okay, well, here's the best result, right? And if a site is very slow or has some of these technical or security problems, then it's going to push it down in favor of other things that don't have those problems.
Makes sense. The other thing that you were talking about, which the HTTPS, I was trying to go to my publisher's website the other day to look at their catalog of their recent bestsellers. And my computer blocked the site, and I noticed it was HTTP. So I contacted my publisher and said, my computer won't even let me get to your site. I was like, I don't understand. I'm like, my computer is blocking the site and saying it's not secure. And he said, well, what do I do? And I said, well, the sites that I know I can go to are HTTPS. So that seems like it happens more and more, yes?
Correct. So Google has basically fundamentally said in the Chrome browser, and Microsoft has followed suit that anytime there's a site that is not secured with HTTPS, present this warning. And you can technically get around it, but it is virtually unsecured. I mean, it's like getting on the old telephone line where the operator could, splice in somebody else and somebody could listen. I mean, that's quite literally how unsecure it is.
Okay, that's good to know. Is there anything that relates to social media tying into websites as a good thing, bad thing? I go to sites all the time and they have share buttons, share this article, share this blog. And so people ask me that question also. Should I just have links to my social media or should I go beyond that? Is that a question you can answer for us?
That's a question we can answer. So you do want to have links pointing to and from your social, and you want to give the social signals that say, hey, my business is active. We're still here. We're still doing things. But it's also another mechanism for telling Google that these two properties are related and these two properties are active. The signals you send from social do not have as much of a weight as other sort of traditional marketing sort of mechanisms for Google, but they're still important nonetheless. And so really you don't need to, you can, maybe take blog content you have and then post it on social, and that's appropriate. You don't need to do anything sort of special from a technical standpoint to really make yourself stand out.
Okay. And then this is another question. This is actually even on my mind. A client asked me this and I'm like, that's a very good question. Let's say that you do several things. Let's say that you work with solopreneurs and you also are a consultant in companies. So you're looking to work with larger companies, Fortune 500 companies, you have that expertise, and you also work with solopreneurs. Do you have two separate websites or do you have two different offerings on a website?
Great question. So we actually maintain several properties ourselves. We have a couple products, and the products are separate and distinct from the core services. And so to the extent you can be laser focused on that core product offering, as long as there's not really kind of cross-selling opportunities between the two, you really should have separate and distinct properties because it sort of advantages you in that way. However, if you're a sort of a service firm and really that's part of your services umbrella, right? It's one of the things you offer, then it makes more sense to have one property and focus on that one property. And you can rank that property for two separate things. So it's less effort, and the cross-sell opportunities of people looking for one service and they say, oh, these guys also do this, is much more impactful and much better for you ultimately, sort of long-term.
Sometimes I personally get confused. Like I was actually looking for something over the weekend. So I'm doing a search, one website after website, and some people's sites just focused on, here's the one result or one outcome that you get with our product. And other people had massive navigation, and I was just feeling overwhelmed. So do we want to limit navigation, or how do we do that?
You want to try to have navigation be as simple as possible. So what may surprise people is that Google is not just doing sort of a technical review, and it's not all automated. There are actually people that Google subcontracts to and contracts to that go and actually physically review the websites, and they have a qualitative score. And so if your website is difficult to navigate, is hard to traverse and hard to figure out where you're going, that reviewer, that person who's reviewing the site, may give it a lower quality score, which can impact your rankings and impact your site health. And so it's very important to try to have things as user-friendly. This is true in software, but it's especially true in sort of your business website.
I have to tell you, you just taught me something I definitely didn't know. My assumption was that everything Google related was probably done through AI, and I really didn't know there were like human beings involved. That's fascinating.
Correct. Yeah, they have a 200-page checklist they sort of refresh every year, and I've read the whole thing. It's really good material right before you're about to go to bed. And there are technical aspects they're reviewing. There's qualitative aspects. And there's also that does the content on the page basically match the queries? And so they're looking at all of those things because they haven't quite perfected sort of AI. They present it as sort of omnipresent, and to some extent it is, but it is very much something that's reviewed by individuals.
Last big question. What should we expect over the next 5 years? What's likely to change in terms of the internet, website, software? What should we be preparing for?
Great question. I think increasingly we're going to see very, very powerful mobile devices. So we really kind of haven't. This device is stronger than the device that took us to the moon. And so the calculators on here, and it basically I have access because of the internet. I have access to other supercomputers. So we anticipate seeing a greater shift towards mobile. We see those mobile devices becoming more powerful because people are tied to their mobile devices. That mobile experience becomes very, very important. And then additionally, we still see a large shift to the cloud. So there's lots of folks who are maintaining physical infrastructure in their business, IT, servers, networking, et cetera. And we're seeing a shift where really folks are just moving it all to the cloud, so they don't have to maintain that physical infrastructure in-house. That's been ongoing, but we still think another 4 or 5 or 6 years that's going to be a continuing trend. And I would say the vast majority of our clients opt to take. We give them both options, but they opt to take a cloud-first approach when they're building something new or refreshing something. And ultimately, what they find is it reduces labor costs, it reduces operational costs, and it reduces those fixed costs because I'm using someone else's infrastructure that they're maintaining, and I don't have to pay somebody to come in and maintain that infrastructure.
Yeah, we've gone in that direction as well for Entrepreneur. So who is an ideal prospective client family member for you? So if someone's listening, watching, and they're saying, oh, maybe I should work with ZibTech, how will they know that they should reach out?
Great question. So our ideal client is someone who has a problem they know can be solved with software, and has something that's core to their business. Maybe they don't do software, maybe they do a little bit of software in-house, but they really need to solve it with a software program, be it a custom application or enhancement of an existing application. And they need to do so with sort of an outside opinion as to how things should be optimally constructed. So really, any and all folks, especially those in the healthcare and finance arena, we have ample experience doing that. But then also folks who need an enterprise application that would really kind of consolidate a lot of problems in their business.
Beautiful. And can you tell folks how to reach out again? And I would encourage the viewers, the listeners, I just don't think as business folks, we need to be dealing with all of these things. We need to focus on the core area of what we're great at. So I'm marketing and I'm business strategy, and that's my area. When it goes out of my area, I turn to a company like ZibTech and say, help. So how do they get in touch with ZibTech again, Ian?
Yeah, you can reach out to us at hello, HELLO, at zibtech.com, or just visit us at www.zibtech.com and submit to the contact form, and I'm CC'd on all those, so we'll definitely get in touch.
Outstanding. And I really recommend that if you're listening, if you're watching, you definitely go to the website, because we've just talked about the fact that you're going to be there and see something unique and unusual that you probably don't have on your website. So I just encourage you as a viewer, as a listener, to open up your mind, be creative, and say, what can I do next, and what is potential for me? Any other last words that you want to leave our listeners and viewers with?
No, I think that the software world is constantly evolving, and it's kind of, the analogy we use is it's like a river you can't step into twice. And so just as you've pointed out that you should really kind of focus on your core business skill set, right? We do the same, and we encourage our clients to really just kind of solve their core business problems. Don't try to build a Maserati. Just try to solve your core business problems, and maybe a Toyota is going to be fine. So that's sort of our general working philosophy, and we are happy to help.
It's great advice. You have been a fantastic guest. I have learned so much. It's funny. I'm going to go back and watch and listen to this, because I couldn't take notes as we were chatting, yet there's about 6 or 7 things that you said that I'm like, oh, I want to take a note on that. So you've been super valuable. I want to thank you for giving us your time, your knowledge, and certainly your expertise today.
Thank you.
And again, to the viewers, to the listeners, I want to thank you for tuning in here at Entrepreneur Radio and TV. And if there's a particular topic that's on your mind, something you want to learn, an expert that you want to hear from, let us know. We also advise you to go back and watch some of the past episodes because there are so many gems and nuggets just like Ian Reynolds has given to you today. And finally, we don't want to be shelf help. Shelf help means that you listen, you watch, and you go, oh, that was interesting, and you put it away and you do nothing. So take a moment and ask yourself, what did I hear today from Ian Reynolds from ZipTech that I can actually implement in my business? And at least the minimal thing that you can do, and I recommend you do it right now, is you go over to ziptech.com. Ian, thank you so much once again for being my guest here at Entrepreneur Radio.
Thank you very much, Dr. Line. Really appreciate it.
You've been listening to Entrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart with your host, Terry Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terry's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog or follow Terry on Twitter at MentorTerry and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terry Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terry on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.